All right, well, I'd like to begin by welcoming you all here today and to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, where I am the traditional owners of the land of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. I'd like to pay respects to their elders and the ongoing connection of the oldest living culture in the world. Here at Austin, we support the important role First Nations people play in continuously holding our society and committed to providing culturally safe services. So welcome all, welcome any First Nations people that are joining us today. Our seminar today is on weight management and exercise. I think I'm remembering.
Nutrition,
Nutrition, yep. Sorry. And I'll hand over to the MC who's got his head around the topic better than me, Nazim Erdem.
Thank you very much, Sal. Thanks everyone for joining us. As Sal mentioned, today's webinar is on weight management, health, and nutrition. So pretty much, what it's about is, looking after our bodies is important to everyone. However, it might be a little bit trickier if we've got a physical disability. Today, we're going to be joined by Kiara Hurst, who's a dietitian at Austin Health. We've also got people with lived experience of disability as well. So, they're going to talk about their own different things that they've come across, any problems they've sort of come across, what they've solved, and what their tips and tricks are. So some of the other areas that we're going to cover is challenges, as I mentioned, for people with spinal cord injury, of course, diet and nutrition, exercise considerations, and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. At the end, or actually not just at the end, but during the session as well, people, if you've got any questions, there should be like a button down the bottom of your screen somewhere where you can type your question. There's also a function to put your hand up as well, I think, where if you want, we can bring you in. And at the very end as well, we'll get everyone to join us as well. You can only see the panelists, so if you're a participant, you won't be able to see yourself. You'll just see the panel members. So what we might do first is just a quick intro from everybody. I'm Naz from AQA. I've got a spinal cord injury which was caused over 30 years ago. So it's been a long time, but I've learned a lot over those years on what's good for your body and what's not so good for your body. Then we've got, actually, I might hand it over to Dan to give us a quick intro about himself.
Hi, I'm Dan. I've got a C4, C5 spinal cord injury. I've had since 2020. A little bit of peer support work with AQA, with the rehab. And I've just kind of worked out my routine to kind of look after my body the best I can and eat a healthy diet and kind of just keeping track of my weight and different things as I go along the journey to kind of help my body move, my bowels, my bladder. That's kind of why topic's important to me, and just the regular exercise to keep staying fit. So that's
excellent. Thank you, Dan. And Fiona, maybe a quick intro from yourself.
Hi everyone, my name's Fiona. I'm a T11, T12 incomplete paraplegic. I had my accident back in 2022, so not too long ago. I work at AQA as a peer coach in the spinal unit here. And yeah, I have a pretty strict routine when it comes to exercise, nutrition, and general health. We can speak to that a bit more later.
Thanks, Fiona. Lachie, quick intro from you.
Yeah, of course. But first of all, Naz, I don't know how you've been in chair for 30 years and you're only 29 years old. It doesn't make sense, man.
Well, no, look, math isn't my strong point, but that's what I tell everyone. Lachie, thanks.
That's all right. So my name's Lachie O'Brien. I'm a T2 paraplegic, incomplete. Have been so for the last 15 years. I love exercise. I do a lot of hand cycling and go to the gym quite regularly. Anything that can get me active. Because of how much it's helped my life, I decided to make that my main job. So I'm a personal trainer, mainly for people with physical disabilities. And yeah, that's my main source of income. So
Excellent. Thank you, Lockie. And we have Sarah with us as well. Quick intro
Yeah,
from
hi
you, Sarah.
everyone. Hi, I am C4, C6 incomplete quad. 2020 was my injury as well. Exercise has been a huge part of achieving what I can achieve in the last 5 years. And with 2 kids running around after them, I didn't really have an option. So I had to figure out the best way to move forward, and exercise has been a huge part of that.
Thanks, everyone. And Kiara. So introduce you at the start, but maybe if you tell us a little bit more about yourself, and you've got a presentation that you're going to share with us as well.
That's it. Absolutely. Thank you for the lovely introduction. But yes, so I'm Kiara, and I'm a dietitian that works in the spinal rehab facility over at Royal Talbot. A little bit about me. Well, I'm very interested in the topic of nutrition, which hopefully you'll all gather today. And I think it's an absolute pleasure to be able to run through a bit of a presentation and answer any questions as well. But otherwise, I keep things pretty simple, like to exercise, like to focus on nutrition as well, bit of a nerd. So hopefully you can learn a couple of things. Even if you take one thing away from today, I think that'll be a win on the board. And no question is a silly question as well. I think that's really important to emphasize in sessions like this too. We're all learning. I'm still learning so much, particularly in this area as well. So I'm sure I'm going to learn from everyone that's on the panel as well, and yourselves through your questions or just comments.
Excellent. Thanks, Kiara, for that. So not sure if you want to start your presentation, but
yeah, absolutely.
ready, yeah.
Ready to rock. That's it.
Okay.
If everyone else is all ready, I'll get into it. So as we've already introduced today, the topic will be mainly nutrition. I'll just make sure my slides are all working. So can everyone see that? That's swapped over to a new slide.
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. It should say overview, today's topics.
No.
I'm not seeing the screen yet, Kiara.
Okay, let's see. Bear with me, give me 1 second. Is that better?
Yep.
All right, awesome, good stuff. Alrighty, so an overview of what we'll be talking about today is essentially starting off with why we care about nutrition. I'd then like to go into why nutrition is really important for our overall health, and just I'm going to touch on some healthy eating principles as well as weight management, and finish off today's presentation with, you know, some strategies around behavior change and making change. So why care about nutrition, particularly following a spinal cord injury? Well, the research shows us that many people with a spinal cord injury really do tend to struggle getting in enough adequate nutrition. So there tends to be a lack of, you know, fruit and vegetables and whole grains. So these are like our main food groups. And there tends to be a little bit of a higher intake of processed foods as well. So that's looking like fast foods, which includes things like, you know, KFC, McDonald's, all the yummy things, right? That are super convenient and easily accessible, and they taste so good. So it's completely understandable, particularly when there are so many things going on from a health point of view. It really makes sense why nutrition can, you know, fall off the list of priorities. So I think if there's one big thing that I want to come through from today's discussion is that, you know, having a lot of self-compassion is really important. And if you are working towards any change, that you be kind with yourself, and that you take it step by step, because nutrition can be really challenging, and really it was designed to be a really enjoyable thing as well. Yeah, so we don't want to take the enjoyment away out of it as well. So following a spinal cord injury, I guess it's there is a higher risk of pressure injuries, as well as osteoporosis, and ultimately, particularly long-term following the spinal cord injury, having issues with obesity, or just, you know, gaining a lot of weight unintentionally. And I guess the risks with gaining too much weight is that it increases our risk of other conditions as well, like type 2 diabetes, blood pressure issues. It can pop some strain more strain onto the joints, contribute to breathing problems, and also make mobility a bit more challenging as well. So when we think of pressure injuries, oftentimes people tell me, oh, but like, how does nutrition relate to that? That's got to do with my skin and, you know, my positioning and things like that. But our protein intake has a really big part to play in the healing of the skin. And I'll talk more about protein a little bit later, as a really important building block as well. So what is a healthy weight? Well, firstly here, I think this graph is a really good depiction of what sort of happens initially following a spinal cord injury. And of course, you know, with anything, everyone's case is quite different as well. So say if this wasn't your scenario, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. This just tends to be a bit more the common picture. But oftentimes initially after a spinal cord injury, there tends to be a rapid reduction in weight. And this is because ultimately the body is dealing with a lot of trauma in most cases, but oftentimes what's happening is that the muscle is actually shrinking as well below the level of injury. And that's why we see such a big amount of weight loss. But then what tends to happen is because the muscle mass goes down, as well as mobility, our metabolism, so the rate at which our body burns through energy and uses calories, it actually becomes quite low. So often the really common picture is that following this dramatic weight loss is this ongoing progressive increase in weight, which tends to just sort of keep on going if there's not too much planning around the nutrition side of things as well. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say to that one. And I guess because of the reduced muscle mass as well, the healthy weight range actually is quite less than what it would have been prior to the spinal cord injury as well. So here's a really good chart. I'm glad that this is recorded, that you can go back to and have a look at based on your height, where you fall in terms of that healthy weight range. So just talking more into the metabolic your metabolism, those side of things, I want to go through a case study with you. But here we have David, 39-year-old male, 147 centimeters tall, weighing 68 kilograms and within a healthy weight range without having a spinal cord injury. Because David is up and about, he's doing a lot of activity and movement, and he's got a lot of muscles on board. Essentially his fuel tank or his energy needs are really high. So it's a bigger, he needs more calories, essentially. That's what we're getting at. But as we progress through the different levels of injury, we can see that David, being a paraplegic, his fuel tank becomes a little bit less. And that's because there's a little bit less muscle on board and there's lower rates of physical activity as well. Then we can see David as a tetraplegic here. The engine is significantly smaller as well, and that's because there's even more muscle loss. So for this reason, David would require a lot less energy, which makes it really challenging when you're trying to manage your weight, because ultimately the amount of calories you need is often not that much. Well, in David's case, wouldn't be that much. So sort of the general diet that we often recommend to everyone is the low carbohydrate, high protein diet. I think it's important to add the disclaimer though that in some cases where, for example, you've lost extensive amounts of weight and your weight continues to downtrend, this diet might not be the best for you. So I guess it really applies in situations where you're trying to control that weight really and to keep your muscles on as much as you can. So here we've got, I guess really this encapsulates the sort of main principles of this type of diet, where we'd be prioritizing a lot of vegetables and protein, because like I said earlier, protein is really that fundamental nutrient for keeping our muscles really strong and healthy. And I guess protein sources include your meat, fish, poultry, eggs, and your dairy products as well. With your veggies as well, you can't go wrong with having a lot of vegetables. They're really low in calories and they also provide a lot of micronutrients, which often, you know, we don't have enough of. So all your different vitamins and minerals. Now, carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are not the enemy. I think it's important to stress that. But it's just, I think what I'd be encouraging is focusing on the portion of carbohydrates. So before a spinal cord injury, perhaps you could get away with having a larger portion at main meals, but the recommendation is oftentimes after to be focusing on a smaller amount. So yeah, carby foods, which we're all pretty common, we all know really, look like our pasta, our rice, grains, potatoes or breads. So still really important as an energy source, but just focusing on the amounts is super important. So what are some practical strategies for helping maintain your weight? Ultimately, if it's, there's just this ongoing unintentional weight gain, I would say look at the portion sizes. Can you have a smaller amount of food at each sitting? I'd also reflect on whether you're snacking throughout the day or in between your main meals. Oftentimes snacky foods, like say if they're nuts or something, they're really great, but if we're having them a lot and quite frequently, it can just be incorporating all of these extra calories, sort of hidden calories throughout the day. And choosing foods that make you feel fuller for longer. So this is really important. If you're sticking to a diet that's super high in fiber, so that's like your whole grain cereal foods as well as high in protein, then that helps. I guess those type of nutrients are harder to digest in the body. And for that reason, you feel fuller for longer. So they stay in the stomach for a bit longer. I think another good strategy is trying to have a good plan or pre-planning, particularly for the long term. Essentially, we want everyone, irrespective of whether you've had a spinal cord injury or not, but really to avoid that yo-yo dieting kind of approach, which often looks like you know, perhaps a couple days a week being really, you know, sort of clean eating and staying away from any processed foods and being super strict, which often results in a bit of like a rebound situation where then, you know, because of so much restriction, you then might be going for a lot of processed foods too. So having a bit of a plan and working out what your goals are, I think is really fundamental. It's a good starting point. Once you've got your key goal, it's all about then how can you work on some little micro goals, which will essentially help to meet that. So I'm going to focus on fiber now because I think fiber is just underrated, but it is so essential for bowel regulation and helping to go to the bathroom a lot more regularly as well. We often encourage a good intake of fiber with a really good bowel regimen too. And the reason we recommend this is because there's a lot of benefits for having a high fiber diet, or at least not high, but just maintaining enough high fiber foods in your diet. Essentially, it helps with managing your weight. It helps improve your overall bowel health too, and it reduces the risk of diabetes and heart conditions as well. Really good in the management of high cholesterol too. So the common recommendation is around at least 15 grams of fibre per day. I mean, for me, I would recommend not getting caught up on the nitty-gritties of the numbers and instead just focusing on your main meals. You know, what do they contain? Do they have lots of whole foods in them? Are they high in fruits and vegetables and your whole grain products? Even things like your beans and legumes, all of those are super rich in fibre, and your tummy is oftentimes really happy with those kinds of foods. So I won't go into it too much, but essentially there are a couple of types of different fibre that all play a different role in the tummy once consumed. So we've got soluble fibre. So this forms like a bit of a gel in the stomach and helps to bring water into the bowel. So things that an example of soluble fibre would be like your oats, rolled oats, or your psyllium husk. Then we have insoluble fibre. So this is that real roughage. So things like your nuts and seeds, your whole grain breads, as well as your whole grain, I don't know, crackers, things with grains in them. Very good. A very good source of insoluble fibre, which essentially helps with bowel motions by pushing everything, all the fecal matter through the intestines. So that's a really key fibre there. We've also got resistant starch and sorbitol as well, which are really important fibres too. So what foods are high in fibre? I think I already went on a bit of a tangent about the fruits and vegetables and all that jazz, but here are some examples on the screen. I'm mindful that this presentation is recorded, so that's fantastic. And in that regard, I'll let you perhaps, if you're interested, to go back through the recording and have a look at what these high fibre foods are that perhaps you could try and incorporate into your diet. So just some practical strategies on how to eat more fibre. So adding fresh or tinned fruit, well, having them just as a snack is really important. Just a disclaimer with tinned fruit, oftentimes it comes in a really sugary syrup. So trying to avoid, you know, extra sugar additives and things. That's just another good way to prevent any excess calories from coming in. So adding in some fresh fruit into your cereal or into your yogurt as well is good. Adding vegetables to mixed dishes or sauces. So if you already have some pretty common, you know, dinner meals that you have or that you get pre-prepared, just maybe perhaps take a look at them and see, wow, is there any way that more vegetables could be incorporated into these, just so I can boost my fibre intake for the day. So the more colour, the better. That's the recommendation. So put vegetables on your plate first. Aim for half veggies, like that plate model that I discussed earlier. So choose wholemeal or whole grain bread, pasta and cereals. So oftentimes white breads, white crackers, they don't really have too much substance to them. They don't really make us feel fuller for longer. So if you can swap it to a whole grain or a wholemeal option, that is the preferred source to have of fibre. So including beans and lentils into your dishes as well. And perhaps at the end of this webinar, we can have a discussion about, you know, what are some, I'd be really interested to hear some strategies that you guys are thinking of how you can incorporate more vegetables or just fibre into your current diet, what you're doing now. So bloating and gas. So often when I recommend, oh, you know, why don't we try increasing some fibre or more fruit into the diet to people, I might get back, oh, but that's going to cause me, you know, so much bloating and gas. And absolutely, that's right. There are particular types of foods that are super high in fibre that often do trigger those tummy symptoms. And I guess what I'd say is a good way of reducing the excess bloating and gas would be starting with smaller portions, particularly if your diet is not quite high in fibre, and making sure that you're matching it with fluid. So lots of fluid with your fibre to help prevent or exacerbate, you know, existing constipation is really important. So foods that can cause gas are either hard to break down, because they are so high in fibre, so the tummy's working extra hard to chew them down, and then they also produce gas too. But just a thing as well. I mean, if we're producing gas, oftentimes that is a good sign as well. It means that our bacteria or our microbiota, which is all the healthy bugs that sit in our tummy, it means that they're sort of happy oftentimes, and they're just chewing away at this fibre, which is really beneficial. So fluids, I already alluded to earlier, but essentially more fibre equals more water. Unless you've been advised by a doctor for perhaps other medical reasons that you should restrict the amount of fluid that you're having throughout the day, I would be saying go for more water. It's so important for us. It's important for just general health. But it's also got other benefits like helping with the prevention of UTIs and things like that too. So the amount of water that you need, it really does depend on your body size, weather, and if you're exercising a lot too. So oftentimes if you're doing a lot of therapies or, you know, in engaging in a lot of activity in general, it's good to make sure that all of that's getting replaced. Sugar-free drinks are best if you are having more fluids, because I mean, full sugar options like, you know, full sugar cordial or full sugar soda drinks and things like that, they often provide a lot of empty calories throughout the day. And then oftentimes people will say, it's really common, I'm just struggling to lose weight. Like, I don't know why this is so challenging. But then when we have a look at, you know, the drinks, it all sort of adds up as well. Can everyone see my slides? I think it went out for a minute there. Anyways, it's propped back up, so I think we're all good. So drinking enough helps prevent and relieve bladder infections. You can also get a lot of fluid from food as well. So oftentimes people don't know that. But things like yogurt, fruits, even vegetables, as well as ice cream and jelly, they do count as towards your fluid intake, which is great. And a common misconception as well is that, you know, if I'm having coffee, it completely cancels out all the water that I put in that coffee. It does. You're still going to be in net positive fluid, you know, if you are having coffee, particularly with water as well. So what about alcohol? So alcohol affects how the gut absorbs water and salt. It can be really irritating to our tummy lining, and it decreases the amount of good bacteria that we have in our large bowel, like I was talking about earlier, and promotes the overgrowth of bad bacteria. And it can also slow gut movement as well, which is, I think, a really important thing to consider if there's been a lot of constipation going on as well. It increases the risk of bowel accidents and damages the liver over time. Super high in calories. In saying all of this, I think it's really important to be able to enjoy and have a balance. And so long as things are not in moderate, you know, in excess, like with most things in life, I think we can apply that principle to a lot. Yeah, then it's all good as well. You know, at the end of the day, everyone knows themselves best. So takeaway. So when going for snack options, if you are snacking in between your main meals, or you just feel like that's something that's really important to you, or, you know, it's just part of a pre-existing routine, I'd be opting for snacks that are super low calories. So that might look like popcorn. That's a deceptive one because you can eat like a lot of popcorn and it still doesn't add up to be too much calories. Fresh fruit, vegetable sticks, low-fat dips as well. And when you're getting things takeaway, always thinking about, you know, oh, what can I get from here that is a bit more of a healthier alternative? So perhaps going for more of like a salad style ingredients, even doing sandwiches, things like that. Pre-made meals are really good too, and they're pretty readily available in the supermarkets. Just if convenience is a really important thing there. So opting for salads, fresh and less processed foods. And if you are eating, you know, foods, you know, from takeout, you know, fast food chains and things like that, which it's still important to be doing those things here and there. I really want to stress that for just enjoyment overall and to add more variety. What I would say is a lot of companies now, they actually show the overall calories that are contained within a meal. I'm not sure why that's been driven, but anyways, it's beneficial. So try and aim for meals that are less than 2,000 kilojoules per meal. And you'll find, now that I've actually mentioned that, if you do look at the calories, for example, for a McDonald's meal or something, it does generally surpass that by quite a bit. So it's amazing how with, you know, these fast food kind of options, you can have such a small amount, still be so incredibly hungry. And yeah, and consuming a lot of calories. That's what I'm getting at. So choose the smaller serves, so e.g. snack sliders instead of a main meal burger, or, you know, build your own options as well, so you can get a bit creative with it. I mean, with all these resources we have online, like access to healthy recipes and things, and making sure that they're really convenient, and they can be appropriately pre-prepared too. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Okay, so tips for making change. So why is making change so hard? Well, it involves disrupting a current habit whilst also introducing a new set of actions. So essentially, it's changing the script of your life, which, particularly when there's lots of other things going on in life, that can be really challenging. It takes time as well. So up to 2 months for a single change to actually stick. So it's an effort in that regard, and managing the setbacks as well. So often our mind leans towards self-criticism instead of curiosity, which is just the way our brain is wired. So, you know, trying to reframe that and really reflect on, you know, in those times where a setback does occur, what is it that you're doing to overcome that? What strategies do you have in place? So willpower, this reduces over the day and with fatigue, pain and hunger. And the common mentality with this is, if I am harder on myself and I have more discipline, beat myself up more, then I can do that thing. But essentially the evidence shows us that the opposite is true to this. So when you have an off day, which happens for absolutely everyone, I think it's imperative to show yourself compassion, and then try to find ways to support yourself. So always coming back to those strategies, and yeah, I think that's really important. So what are some of these strategies? So start incredibly small. So easy you can't say no. So for example, you might be, you know, this session might have prompted the thought of, oh, what's my fluid intake been like? Have I been, you know, maintaining at least 2 litres of water a day? It might be a matter of starting with 2 glasses, 3 glasses a day, and that's an absolute win on the board. And often I find people, what helps them is attaching a particular habit to something that they're already doing. So for example, in the morning, if you take your medications with 1 glass of water, just adding another glass to that task that's already happening, because it's not really changing the script too much. Increasing in small ways. When then plans, be specific. So like I alluded to earlier, having your goals written down is really imperative, and that doesn't have to relate just to nutrition. That can be in all other aspects of your health as well, and just your overall management, and coming up with some micro goals and little targets of how can I achieve this, and really thinking about how practical that is. Are you shooting a bit too high? Are you shooting a bit too low? You know, everyone knows themselves best. So, yeah, being familiar with that's important. So shaping your environment to support your goals as well. So that might look like having a conversation with family or even care providers to talk about what are the things that work best for you, what type of meals do you prefer, coming up with a bit of a plan, and having someone hold you accountable. I think that always helps too. You know, sometimes it might just be like, oh, can you just call me on this time to make sure that I did this, or, you know, everyone's got their own little things that they do that might help. getting back on track quickly. I think that's really important, and it can be super challenging, definitely when there's been setbacks, but having a bit of a plan of how can I sit in this and acknowledge it and validate this, but then also how do I get back in the game of what I had set out to do and accomplish. Stick to a pace that you can sustain and think about what will make it hard. Yeah, so what are some of the barriers to whatever your goals is? Thinking about those barriers, and then what are the strategies you can employ to overcome those? And that's it for me and what I have to say, but I look forward to, I'll go tab now so I can see everyone, hearing everyone's questions.
That was great. A lot of information there, Kiara. Like you said, learning all the time, and you know, if you're not learning, like just getting this stuff reinforced is really important as well. Just having a look at what questions are coming up. Actually, I got one for myself, if that's okay. You mentioned chewing gum causes bloating, I think it was.
Oh, that one there,
yes. So just wondering how that works, you know, because you're not actually taking or swallowing anything, you're not having any intake, but is it just the action of chewing that causes?
Yeah, well, you're taking in a bit more air. And then sometimes as well, depends on the kind of gum you're having. Sometimes they put like artificial sweeteners in them, and that can cause some tummy upset as well.
Okay.
Kiara, you're still screen sharing.
Oh, okay. Let me stop the share. Sorry, guys.
That's it.
Okay. Is it stopped?
Yep.
Oh, fantastic.
Can I jump in on a question?
Yes, go for it.
Yeah, I'm just curious about fats, where that fits into the play as well within a meal.
Yes, good one. So fats are still really important. And I would say often if you're having, you know, a high protein diet, you're likely to still be having fats, you know, through fish. And then if you're still having a wide variety of vegetables, like avocado, for example, you'll still be having fats in there, but still focusing on the portion. So that's a really good point that you pulled out there, and I'd love to add that in next time. Where, say, if you are having a really high fat food like avocados or salmon or things, it's just focusing on the amount you're having. But I wouldn't recommend completely cutting them out because they're so important. They're so important for our brain health, and they provide a lot of omegas and fatty acids. They're just so important for us, and they're usually pretty high in protein. Yeah.
If I was to look at the back of a packet, for example, just to give an example of something like you said, those prepackaged meals, how many grams of fat should I look to aim for roughly? I know it's a bit niggly, but like, yeah.
Yeah. No, I actually, to be honest, I carry a card around with me when I get asked these really specific numbers questions, because often I'm like, just focus on the whole foods, but based on my card that I have on me now. So I've got it for particular products. So what would be considered a low fat product, you'd be aiming for around less than 10 grams per 100 grams of that product. It's really important with fats to know, though, we've got really healthy fats and we've got unhealthy fats too. So those processed foods, takeaway options, they're usually filled with a fat called two bad types of fats, saturated and trans fats. And those are the ones that contribute to cholesterol problems. Yeah. But then you've got good fats as well, which come from our nuts, avocados, oil, which are all really important, but just in controlled amounts.
Awesome. Thank you.
All good.
Got some questions from the audience to Kiara.
Yes.
Bianca asks, I've got PCOS, which I presume is polycystosis.
Yep, ovarian syndrome.
Yep. That one. And vision impairment as well as a spinal cord injury. Can they also be a challenge in terms of losing body weight?
Yes, absolutely. So was that the question? Yes, absolutely. So these conditions particularly the PCOS and spinal cord injury, can make it really challenging to lose weight because the metabolism is a lot lower. So kind of like what I spoke about earlier, that tank, so the amount of petrol that you need is a lot less, which can make it really tricky. And I think when you've got a lot of medical conditions going on, it's really important to go see a dietitian, even if it's one session or two sessions, just to help you understand how you can manage it and maybe come up with a plan or, come up with some strategies just tailored to you. I think that's another important thing I want to highlight with nutrition. It's all good and dandy that I've got these slides and these are sort of the main recommendations, but it's good to work out what works for you. And everyone's body's different based on their medical conditions, history, food preferences, allergies. Yep. I hope that answered that question.
Right. And then we've got someone Karen's asking, can this presentation be emailed as well? So we've mentioned that it's being recorded, but a couple of people that are keen on seeing a PDF or something like that. Is that a possibility?
Yeah. I'm more than happy to share the slides. No problem there. Yep. So I can perhaps send them to you, Sal or Naz.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll be great because everyone who registered to join the webinar, what we do afterwards, we send them a link of the recording. And what I'll do once I get the PDF or the slideshow, I'll create a PDF of it and attach that to the email.
All right.
Fantastic. Sounds good.
Another question from Bianca. Are calories the same as kilojoules?
Oh, good question. Yes, they are. They're just a different, if you use calories, just refer to calories. Yeah. But to work out the amount of calories per kilojoule, if that makes sense. So for 1 calorie, it's like 4.2 kilojoules. So what I spoke about earlier in the presentation, I think there was talking about fast food meals and, aiming for something that's less than 2,000 kilojoules. You would, to get the calories of that, what I'm referring to, you would just get 2,000 and you divide it by 4.2 or 1/8 to be really specific. But yes, it's the same thing. It's all energy.
Right. And Karen asks, with research that you mentioned, what are the reasons people with a spinal cord injury do not have good nutrition?
That's a really good one. To be honest, I actually don't have a really definitive answer for that. From my understanding, it would be really, there's lots of layers to it, but yeah, I think it just depends on the person. I think there'd be, Dan, you just speak. Yeah, thank you. That'd be great.
Like with my C4, C5 injury, I can't move a lot of my body and my hands don't move. So when I first returned home, I was kind of using food as like a comfort. Like I'd spend time at home and I'd just be bored all day. So go to food as a type of comfort, and I'd always go walking out in the neighborhood with my family and friends, and we always go get food as a type of thing. So it's that's how I was using food. But I guess I've found a hobby since then. Like I've started taking up oil painting, and doing that has kind of taken away from, it's made me focus on something different that's not going to food as comfort. But now I still enjoy good meals with my family and my friends and my partner, but it's not everything now. And then I guess even recently getting involved in more work recently, it's just given me another outlet to do different things in my life. So, but it's still my birthday, like my birthday on the weekend, so I still enjoyed a good meal and like a beer at the pub the other day, but I'm not going to it for every snack when I'm just a little bit bored. Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. There's a few more questions that have come in, but maybe Naz, you might want to get the panel involved for a bit, and then we'll come back to the questions.
Yeah. Thanks for that. So We all love food, and I think it's all about balance. And sometimes, we can control that balance, but just want to sort of see, this is an open question to the panelists about how they balance their food. I mean, sometimes we can't stay away from junk food, for example. That's delicious. It's easy to get. It's always seems to be very handy. Doesn't cost a lot as well, but how do you control your balance?
So I actually had the opposite to Dan. Is after my injury, I don't eat a lot. So I reduced from before my injury. I've lost about 20 kilos since my injury, and I just didn't eat anything. Still now focusing on trying to force myself to eat is a huge part of my day. I do a lot of soups to try and get everything in because that seems to sit a lot better in my stomach. I can't eat really heavy like pastas and things like that, but I really do need to focus on trying to get the nutrition in for the day just in a different way than I used to, because it just doesn't sit right in my stomach anymore. But I wasn't eating days, and then you become sluggish and you won't want to do anything. And it's amazing how much the food you have to take in on a day just to get by.
Anyone else?
No, just repeat the question again, Matt. Sorry.
Yeah, like just when it comes to nutrition and all that sort of stuff, I mean, sometimes people are like super busy and don't have time to prepare meals. I know you're not in that boat, Lachie. You're a qualified chef. You prepare your own meals, and most of them are healthy. But sometimes there's when we have got enough time, we go past KFC or Macca's and all that sort of stuff, and it's too easy. It's very cheap. It's delicious food. How to control yourself? How do you have a balance? Do you say to yourself it's okay to occasionally have junk food, but then keep a tab on that?
Yeah, so for me, I actually do. I actively, maybe once a fortnight, will do something like KFC or some good food because I do enjoy it. For me, hard thing is I like to feel satiated or full after I meal. I like to feel like, oh, I've eaten enough. Mind you, I do exercise a lot, so that's on the side there, just to note that. But Kiara said, I do put a lot of fiber in a lot of my meals. I think being prepared as much as possible helps prevent you choosing a lot of those other options when you're tired and everything like that. Like for example, because I do go to Shepparton every Tuesday for a personal training group, I'll put like muesli bars or fruit in the car and everything like that. And sometimes when and I drive through a few fast food places on the way, so I'm like, I try and have them there so that I can have those as healthy options and that sort of stuff. The meal prep's also always a good one. Like there's a lot of recipes online that are really helpful. Like doing big tray bakes, so the tray full of vegetables, maybe some meat in there, maybe potatoes or something like that. So it has all your sort of food groups in there. That's a really easy way to do it, and it's like throw it together, bit of seasoning, and then in the oven 20-30 minutes. That's a really, really good way to do it. I find that's being ahead, being prepared is the best way, I think personally.
Yeah, you got to set aside time for it, don't you? Sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, no, I was also going to agree with that. Just having a few frozen meals in the fridge, like just your Muscle Chef ones or Light and Easy, you can get them. Just having them on the side for those nights that you can't be bothered, you can just grab one out and you've got it covered.
Excellent.
To that as well, I second everything Sarah and Lachie said. Meal prep for me is pretty important on a weekly basis. I put a lot of the meals in containers and put it in the freezer, and then keep 5 or 6 meals in the fridge for after work days. I work 3-4 days a week, so when you get home, it's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, and the last thing you want to do is spend an hour cooking. So having those meals ready in the fridge, pop in the microwave, and you're done and dusted for the day. And I don't really snack that much, but if I do snack, I just choose fruit and veg and carrot sticks and celery and stuff. So stick to the healthier options.
Oh, that's great. Fiona, you mentioned before that you lost, I can't remember how many kilos you said, but was that because you wanted to lose weight, or did you just lose weight because it just happened, because you were ill or something like that? Was that controlled? Did you want to lose weight at that time?
Is that a Sarah question or what, me?
No, you, Fiona.
So over the years, I intentionally wanted to lose weight, but it's quite hard, as Kiara has talked about. I remember before my injury, I'd be able to lose, 6 kilos. I did like challenges, fitness challenges, and lost 9 kilos in 6 weeks and 5 kilos in 4 weeks, and having a high protein, low carb, and heaps of fluid in my diet. I'm doing the same now, but the weight's coming off just a lot less because just with the mobility, you're using less energy and calories. So, the weight comes off slowly, but it is manageable and is doable.
I found that too. Like my weight, it's harder to stay as fit as before. Like I used to ride a lot of bikes and stuff, but I still try and do a bit of exercise every day, even if it's a little bit of weights or do my arm bike, or I just try and do something every day and do it in the morning. But the big thing for me now is not eating too much. So it's that portion control of trying to cut back, and not have seconds, but then it's kind of like the first few weeks I'll try like not have seconds, but then the next few weeks maybe I'll eat a little bit less if I've noticed my weight's kind of ballooned out. But just taking it step by step, maybe.
No, that's it. Things like that happen slowly. When people gain weight, it's not like the next day they gain weight. It's like over weeks or even months. So it's a slow process. And I think people got to remember, if you want to lose weight as well, you're not going to lose it in one day or a couple of weeks. You got to set the goal and stick to the habit. Make sure you've got a good habit, and slowly that weight will come off. Just wondering regarding exercise. I mean, some of us use power chairs, some of us use manual chairs. So, if you use a manual chair, is there a particular exercise you do? Do you go for a push, every day, every few days or something like that? And Daniel mentioned, he exercises as well. So there are different types of exercise we can do to target to lose weight. Just wondering if anyone wants to mention how they do that.
Well, I think
That's
the
good.
perfect person for that would be Lachie, because he's Fiona and my personal trainer. So I'm sure he's got that covered.
Yeah, I think it's underestimated how much you need to do. Like I've worked with clients before who have made very minimal changes with their diet and only exercise maybe potentially once a week and sort of expecting changes. But I think the hard truth is it's hard. It's hard work, guys. It's hard work. And consistency is the key. Um, so getting out there and doing, potentially roughly 2 times 30 minutes worth of cardio a week and some resistance training if you can. And how does that look? That could look anything like pushing your wheelchair at a moderate intensity. So developing the fitness for that's very important. There's other cardio equipment you can use. So you can use like a racing wheelchair. You could use hand cycling. Hand cycling is my exercise of choice. Is something I love. And because I love it, it's more sustainable, which is very, very important as well. You got ski ergs in the gym, so it's like almost like imagine a rowing machine, but from an upright position, you row downwards. And then just to mention there as well, you got a rowing machine. There's so many options. And if you go to the gym, you can do like sort of hit circuits. Like I do that with a lot of my clients because they don't get a lot of cardiovascular activity. We do a lot of high intensity training sessions. So that combines a lot of strength and resistance training, and then also gets the heart rate up, and it just covers all grounds. It gets your endorphins rush, so it also makes you feel a lot better and helps control a lot of appetite as well. So yeah, that is quite important.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I recommend, yeah, but however that may look for you, what you can fit in your lifestyle, every little bit you can do is more
Well,
helpful.
we'll come back to that.
Sorry,
Lachie. No, that's good because I thought, we might also talk about if you've got limited function, what sort of activities you can do as
Mm.
well. I think we've only got Kiara for a few more minutes before she's got to leave, and I can see there's quite a few questions coming up as well. So maybe I'll go through some more of these questions. And we've got the professional here with us. So, Kiara, question is, what do you think about intermittent fasting, and what's the pros and cons around that?
That's a good one. I think it varies from person to person. I think for me, yeah, my opinion would be if you are intermittent fasting, would be to not be too strict, essentially. That's what I'm getting at, because some of these fasting diets can be like not eating for a lot of hours and then all of a sudden eating. So that's why I must say I'm not really a fan of them. Because it kind of promotes a sort of a disordered relationship with food, essentially. But then again, in saying that, in some situations, it might be appropriate where, for example, there's so much weight gain and it's just sort of a quick way of addressing it and getting the weight down. It's actually mixed. I've got a bit of it depends on your situation. So I think that's a good one, that if you go see a dietitian and you do a consult, they'll be able to advise based on your situation whether it's better for you. But yeah, there's some for and some against. There's mixed evidence as well for it.
I think sometimes they can be fast solutions, can't they? Or short-term solutions.
Yeah, sometimes.
Not
Like
lasting.
I have had some people that do it, and it is a long-term thing, and it works really well with
Okay.
their lifestyle too. It just there's a lot of things to take into account before saying I wouldn't go to everyone who's trying to lose weight and say, yep, go do that kind of dieting. So yeah.
Yeah, great. Another question is, this is my own example, but it is a question as well. So, say you prepare yourself a healthy meal, salad and all that sort of stuff, and you drown it in tomato sauce and all that sort of stuff. So it's not working for you. So the question is, should sauces and toppings like salad dressings be avoided to help with weight control?
I think they do contribute to a lot of the calories that you have throughout the day. Absolutely. So where possible, if it's not too much of a sacrifice, really limiting them is actually one really good way to start the process of losing weight, because it doesn't really help you feel full or anything. It's just there more so for the flavor. So if it's something that can be adjusted, absolutely, that's a really good point to make, focusing on condiments, dressings, and if you're using any oil, just like a little bit, because it's still quite high fat, as Lachie was saying before with the fats, we need to consider that. So just having a drizzle, but very light. Yeah.
Okay.
Really good point.
Another question is, do hormones play a part in gaining unwanted weight, and how can this be managed?
Yeah, that's another one that's really specific medically to your situation. So there are some medical conditions that contribute to fluctuations in hormones in people, and absolutely it can contribute to weight gain. So like a common example that pops to mind for me might be a woman that's like perimenopausal or going through menopause, but essentially a lot of the hormonal changes that occur during that phase of life also contribute to a reduced metabolism. So that's just one example where, yes, that hormonal change can do that. But there's a lot of conditions out there that can have impacts. So it's good to get tailored advice.
Great. Thanks for that one. Someone wants to know what your thoughts are on weight loss shakes.
Yeah. What's my thoughts? I mean, they do have a place for some people. For example, the ones that prop to mind is like OptiFast, those shakes. And if I were to recommend any of those shakes, it would be those. And that's because they're what we say nutritionally complete. So they have added a whole range of vitamins and minerals in them. So say if you were to have that as one of your meals, you'd still be getting in a lot of the nutrients that your body needs. But, you know, just going for like a plain protein powder, that probably wouldn't cut it for like a meal replacement. Yeah.
Fantastic. And this one is just a comment. If you like adding sugar to your coffees or having full cream milk with your cereal, could you gradually reduce the sugar by half a teaspoon and swapping full cream milk to reduce fat milk over a month or so? Small changes are easier. That's a comment.
100%. That's
Yeah.
it. Oh, I think you didn't need to ask the dietitian. You already had the strategy with that
That's it.
point.
Yeah,
So that was a fantastic strategy. Absolutely. Exactly. And that really employs what I was, you know, trying to say in part of the presentation where, you know, small little changes over time. Be easy with yourself. That's a great one.
yeah, just setting yourself those little goals, I think, is really
Yeah,
important.
that's it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Change is not easy.
Now this question here, I'm not sure who can answer this one. What are the ways quadriplegics weigh themselves? Hoist scales, will on scales or other? So I guess that's a general question.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of ways. First of all, if you go to the Royal Talbot or Austin, they've got the scales in there. You can roll on there. If you hop out of the chair, they weigh your chair and you can deduct that. So does that, if that makes sense? The other way is if you're okay with your transfers, and you've got a pet dog, especially a pet cat, you go to the vets, roll in there. Usually they're big enough and you can go on the scales there and you can weigh yourself there. You just got to be able to get off your chair, weigh your chair, and then minus your chair from your weight. That is one option as well. Unless you know the weight of your chair, and then you can roll them each time. That makes it easier. So they're the ways I know. Just a quick question, Garrett. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you know a good dietitian out in the community that maybe, if people were interested to reach out to, they could?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Do you know who would know, I reckon? And I'm more than happy to get in contact with her, but Chantel, so the dietitian that worked in this role prior to me. So I can get in contact and ask. But spinal is actually it's a really niche area of dietetics as well. So, but I am more than happy to look into it. And perhaps send out some contacts so I can send them through to you, Naz.
Yeah.
Or sell. Yeah, because that's a really good one. Yeah, thanks, Lachie.
Why do I ask some questions, Naz, or is there other stuff you need to go?
No, just depends on Kiara's time now. I know, Kiara, you got to go. How much longer?
That's all right. I reckon about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So just curious, once you're following the spinal injury, I don't know if there's any research that's been conducted in this, but once you're a lot more active, could be at least 2 to 3 sessions of quite hard intensity a week. How does that affect your metabolism for someone being in a chair? And obviously, I'm guessing that because you utilize a lot less heat through your body, you wouldn't burn as much as someone necessarily able-bodied. Would you know roughly?
Well, my thoughts would be that through a lot of exercise, particularly if you're developing muscle, what happens is once you start building more muscle, your metabolism actually increases, because when muscle is at rest, it just uses a lot of it needs a lot of energy to really sort of survive. So that's why that's the answer I've got. Does it sort of answer it? Or
100%.
Yeah. So building muscle, higher metabolism. So then you can get away with a bit more nutrition. And also it depends on the degree of injury as well, because then that's ultimately going to influence how much muscle and what areas of the body you can build the muscle in.
And just a quick one as well, that a lot of people don't know a lot about this, about protein and how much grams you can absorb per meal, and spreading across the day. Can you shed some light on that?
Yes, that's a really common one that dietitians for ages have been recommending to have, like 30 grams, 30 grams, 30 grams spread across throughout the day. But recently, actually, over here at the Austin, we had a department-wide, essentially we reviewed some of the latest evidence in that area, and your body will utilize quite a lot of protein. So it doesn't have to be spread across the day. So you'll use, say if you have like 100 grams of protein in that one sitting, there's no kind of cap.
Oh, for protein synthesis.
I'm pretty sure it was, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Sorry, I was curious.
No, that's it, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it, all good. Yeah, so utilizing the protein, yeah.
I've got a question for
Awesome.
Kiara as well. How does your diet impact your stool and kind of your bowel movement with a spinal cord injury? Especially for me,
Yes.
I need support workers to do abdominal massage.
Mhm.
So how does your diet
Yes, so diet, that's a really good question. Diet has a big part to play in bowel regulation and going. So I think the key sort of elements to bowels in general is having adequate fiber, having enough water, and then of course moving as much as possible. But I would say if someone's experiencing constipation, it's really important to know what's sort of driving that, because there's different types of fibers that you can have to help with that constipation. So this is where it's really good to speak with the dietitian, and based on your situation, get that fiber advice really tailored to you. Like, is it more oats that you need, which is that soluble fiber, or is it more roughage to help like push things through? Where's the gap? And that's where, doing a really thorough diet assessment can help to give those really tailored recommendations. But ultimately, maintaining super high fiber, lots of water, that's a good starting point.
Great, thank you.
Oh, good.
Well, what about vitamins and minerals, Kiara? What's your thoughts on them? And I was also going to mention, a lot of people with spinal cord injuries, we get UTIs quite often, I think, and we take antibiotics, and that plays with our gut health. Is there any recommendations like regarding probiotics that we could be taking on a regular basis to make sure we've got those good
Yeah, a really good question. So going for fermented type foods is really good. I was just reading the other day some of the evidence around sauerkraut, unpasteurized sauerkraut, which is just like sort of like a cabbage in a jar. You can just get it from Woolworths, but essentially that's packed with heaps of bacteria in it. So it's like having a probiotic, if anything, maybe better. And going for other sort of fermented food options as well. That's really good to help with your overall tummy health.
Yeah, things like yogurt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So yogurt, and then always looking at the food label too, to see what kind of bacteria is in it, or if it does have probiotics, because probiotics are the actual bacteria. And when you eat a high fiber diet, that's providing those bacteria with kind of like their nutrition. So it's, yeah. And probiotics as well, I was just going to say, when if you are having a UTI and you're on the antibiotics, I don't know really the efficacy or how useful it is to be taking a probiotic whilst you're on the antibiotics as well.
Okay.
So perhaps focusing on that real, if you are taking them, probably following the antibiotics. Yeah. But it's always good to be guided by a doctor.
Yeah, I was going to mention.
Yeah, it depends on the antibiotic type too and things. Yeah.
Someone mentioned here cranberry juice also works well for UTIs as well. So I think some studies show that, and some studies I've heard show that it's sort of like a placebo as well. So if you think it works, I think continue with it. I think
that's it. I mean, it's not harming anyone. That's right. Yeah, but I don't absolutely know. That's my understanding of cranberry juice. But water is so important. Fluids.
Got another question just came through from Georgina. What's your opinion on gluten-free foods? Are they fattening?
Good one. So the only reason I'd recommend a gluten-free diet or gluten-free eating is if you're diagnosed with celiac disease. And that is really when you have an intolerance to gluten, and when you consume gluten, it causes damage to the lining of your stomach. So that'd be the only time I'd be saying go gluten-free. It's a really common misconception that if it's gluten-free, if it's a vegan, it's got less calories, it's much healthier for us, and so forth. I think that's just a fantastic marketing strategy, unfortunately, which they've done pretty well. But ultimately, if you don't require gluten-free, I would say don't go for it. But if you do, that's also okay as well. And we have a lot of products coming out in the market that are gluten-free as well. But also, I'd like to inform that gluten is actually just a protein as well. I think a lot of people perceive gluten to be like this sugar thing that has lots of calories in it and it's dangerous, but it's not. Yeah.
I guess, Kiara, can you give an example of a couple of good meals that are kind of easy to prepare, that which have kind of everything you need, or just say breakfast and dinner, two different meals?
Yeah, breakfast, dinner. So I think for breakfast, some really convenient options might be like oats. I'm not sure if that might be one, or having like pre-prepared like egg wraps or something. Even a bit of cereal is okay too. Just bearing in mind that cereal like Cocoa Pops and Fruit Loops, even Sultana brand, marketing is really good for them, but they're not that beneficial for you. So yeah, going for your oats. What else? Maybe some Wheat Bix. They've got a bit of fiber in them too. And then it was a lunch meal, was it? Sorry, Dan?
Yeah,
or just another
dinner.
lunch or dinner. So for convenience purposes, I'd just say if you like tuna, chuck a tuna into, a bit of lettuce or something, make up a salad with a bit of bread, or put it into a sandwich. That's like a really convenient one. Or adding in maybe some like legumes, chickpeas or something like that into a fresh salad. Buying pre-prepared meals as well, they're pretty good too, particularly the ones, someone mentioned it earlier, I think Fiona, it was yourself, the My Muscle Chef, or but they're really good too, because they're quite high in protein as well.
Right.
About flavouring water, I think we've sort of covered this one. It depends what you flavour the water with, isn't it? So
That's right.
if you
Absolutely. Yeah.
so it's just a lemon or something, that's probably okay. But if you put like 3 teaspoons of sugar or something like that, it's probably not so good.
That's right. Absolutely. That's it. So trying when, understandably, I mean, particularly if you're not one to be super thirsty, or it's hard to just drink plain water, I think it's a great strategy to add some stuff into it. But yeah, trying to go for, I don't know, there's mixed messages around sugar-free options, but in some cases when you're really feeling like it and it's not a everyday thing, that's okay too, like a little bit of sugar-free cordial to get in those, 2 liters of water, why not, Yeah.
Just having a look at the questions as they're coming through. We've got a few comments coming through. This one just says, there's lots of vitamins out there. I have tried to cut back. If we are eating the right food, do we need extra? Maybe vitamin D, C, Australian, maybe on an individual basis.
That's a good one. That's right. Yeah, I'd say that, Naz. It's all individual basis. That's it. It's good to go to the doc, get a blood test done, get a nutrient screen done if you're concerned. But normally, if your diet does have a wide variety of these food groups, oftentimes should be good. But there are some situations, for example, women with iron, that's a really common deficiency, or vitamin D in general. It's so common to be low in vitamin D. So oftentimes people need a supplement too. Yeah, and just diet's not enough.
Do you have time for one quick question from me, or do you?
Yeah, absolutely, all good.
Awesome, thank you. Just a quick question about it's two ones. About how often do you think, if you have access to weighing yourself, a healthy amount of times per week to weigh yourself? First question.
Yeah, I mean, bearing in mind, that it can be
Mm.
a lot of effort as well. I would say, keeping track maybe once every 2 weeks. It really, it depends on you as well. For some people, that might be really triggering, checking the weight all the time. Instead, it might be best to go by how your pants feel or how your clothes are fitting, just generally how you're overall looking or feeling about your body. That's important. But say if you're, losing extensive amounts of weight, that's when I'd be saying at least once a week. But if it's just to see whether you're stable, but your eating's been good, you're maintaining regular meals, and there hasn't been too much change, yeah, once every 2 weeks or once a month as well, that'd be really ideal, just to keep track of things.
Yeah. Second one I'm trying to phrase as a question, but I know a lot of people have a reactivity around water weight loss. Like they drop heaps of weight and they're like super excited, and then it comes back up because they've just weighed themselves and they're in a dehydrated state, and they're not versus that. I don't know, just I suppose it's been enough topics like that, but it's just like reactivity around that, because I have clients that don't have creatine because of that, and even though there's good benefits, even though I won't go into it, but like things like that there, it's, I don't know, like, is that how important, how more important it is to be hydrated versus not hydrated in that sense, I guess, as well.
Yeah, I would say that's incredibly, this is why it's really important to whatever advice you're giving to anyone, particularly like in that fitness world or, exercising, people are really invested in that. It's a good thing to sometimes not be so regimented and focused on the scales, because the reality is we still everyone needs good nutrition to be able to function, whether that means 2 kilos plus or negative or minus. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So maybe perhaps just reminding people and I guess sort of providing some comfort in that it's really normal to have these fluctuations, and absolutely have the creatine, have the protein. So you have energy and you can build your muscles and you can get strong. So yeah. And if it is triggering a client like that, probably wouldn't. I'd come up with some other ways of tracking their progress.
I think measurements is a good way to go.
That's so good, Sarah. Yes,
that's my personal opinion, is the scales don't necessarily change, but the measurements have changed heaps. Because technically muscle weighs more than fat, so you build up the muscle, and yeah, measurements is something I recommend.
Yes, thank you so much. Excellent. Yes, indeed. That's it. I know that should have been at the forefront of my mind, but it's not now. I think my mind is going to be tired. But yeah, really good point there.
Because I'm personally, not for the people that are real nitty-gritty about it, but I've done DEXAs before, so it's like a full scan of your body. Still, they're not dead accurate, but yeah, just people out there, that's a bit more of an accurate way to do it. And I've gained more weight, and it's different for riding. I need to be lighter to go up hills faster, but gain more weight. And I was wondering what was going on. Literally, it's muscle mass, big difference. So yeah, it's people out there that can be huge difference, and that's just lose muscle. You don't want to lose it that quickly.
That's right, absolutely. Muscle weighs so much more than fat. Measurements are great. Yeah. And DEXAs are pretty good. That's awesome. You're able to get a DEXA scan. That's good. Yeah.
Getting any other questions, Kiara? Sorry, Sal, go.
Yeah.
What's a DEXA scan for those that don't know?
I forget now because I learnt about it in uni, so that's a little while ago. But essentially, it's a scan that I don't know what the full name stands for because I forget, because we just say DEXA. But essentially, it's a scan that is able to show the amount of essentially fat mass and muscle mass that your body has, but in a really accurate way. And I can see it's fantastic. I was saying that Lachie could get one of those because particularly with the spinal cord injury, it's really good to gauge how much muscle is on board versus fat, especially if you are gaining weight but doing a lot of activity and eating really well, because it might not necessarily be all fat, but in some situations it might be as well. If you're, yeah. All good.
All good, Kiara. I think we've answered, or you've answered all those questions. You've been great, fantastic. Thanks very much for your time. we're going to stay on for a few more minutes with the other panelists and just have a discussion.
That was
But
an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me
yeah,
today,
no,
guys.
really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Have a good rest of the day, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, Kiara.
Thanks.
Thank
See
you.
you. Bye.
And thanks to the people who Googled DEXA scan. We've got a couple of people that responded
All
with
right, got some.
the definition, a dual energy X-ray absorptiometry. We're going to bring people on, Naz.
Yeah, we'll do that. Just one. Just want to sort of see if there's any tips and tricks, because we'll stop the recording after we bring the other guys on. But maybe a quick one. Sarah, any tips or tricks from you about maintaining weight or exercise, that sort of stuff?
Exercise is probably more my key to keep going, because I notice on days where I don't do anything, like I like to have my Sundays where I don't do anything, but my body absolutely hurts by the end of the day because I haven't really done anything. So I do notice that even though I like to whinge and moan about exercising 3 times a week, I do feel better for it and I can do more. And just functionality wise, when I came home from hospital, I was having carers 7 hours a day to help function, shower, do all that. Over the 5 years, I'm down to 2 hours a day for personal care, because I've been able to build that strength, build the endurance to do things on my own. Like, yes, it's taken a long time, but without doing the exercise and putting in the hard work, it's not going to happen. And I'm very realistic that as I get older, it's going to get worse and things are going to seize up a bit. So I would like to be as mobile and functioning as much as I can while I can. And exercise is a huge, huge part of that.
No, that's great. Thanks, Sarah, for that. How about you, Fiona?
Yeah, in terms of exercise for me as well, it's just not about weight loss and weight management for me. Mental health and your mentality as well is a big deal for me. I suffer from a lot of depression, anxiety, and I find exercise is the only way that I can get myself out of that negativity, or when I feel anger or stressed and stuff. That's ways that I cope. And another good tip is accountability as well. So having someone rock up at your doorstep to do a PT session, or your exercise physiologist or your physiotherapist come 3-4 times a week, and lock in those sessions throughout the week and keeping that routine in your schedule really helps me get on with my week and maintain health and weight management and stuff as well.
No, thanks, Fiona. So routine, I think that's something we need to really concentrate on and take seriously, getting into a routine. Dan, how about you?
Yeah, I like to do exercise as well, but I gotta do it first thing in the morning, otherwise I'm thinking about it all day or I regret it. But I don't like to do the same thing every day. Like, I do different things. I'll do weights for an hour one day, and then next day I'll do the hand bike. Another day I'll see the physio. So you can do variety in the same week. But I guess in terms of diet and management, it's just like portion control and just taking it small steps at a time, not changing your whole diet up. And then it's also kind of getting the people involved, like my partner who I live with, getting her involved in what I'm trying to do and tell her I'm trying to eat less so I can look fitter next year, and same with family and friends. Just get support network going.
No, it's very important, having a balance, being conscious of what you're eating and all that sort of stuff. And support network, you mentioned, Dan, that's really important too, So being accountable in a way, that's what you're doing, isn't it? By having that support network. Guys, I'm going to stop the recording, but don't go away, because what we're going to do is we're going to get all the people that are watching us at the moment. I'll bring them into, so we can sort of, if they want to ask any live questions, they can speak that. So
Guys,
do
can I
that
add
now.
something as well? Can I add something, please?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, I only got 2 logs for you. Just further on from what Fiona, Sarah, and everyone said, that I think I'm really big on not focusing just on weight loss from an exercise point of view. If you're doing it, if we're talking about exercise specifically and nutrition, a lot of that. I think finding goals, other goals can be more motivating for a lot of people. Challenges, whether it be achieving push for 10Ks, riding, whatever distance, doing an event, that can make a big difference because a lot of that entails a lot of good nutrition. And then from there, you start to build a lot of habits. I think habits are very, very important. Timing, what time of the day you like to exercise, that's really important. I'm a morning person, similar to Dan, morning for riding and then gym in the afternoons. And yeah, just those certain habits, just when you go to the shops, just trying to make sure you still have like organized potentially junk food. Like once or twice a week, have a chocolate bar once or twice, and then you kind of know like, oh, that's exciting. Look forward to that. So then you don't go all off it and then just go nuts and then eat a lot because that's a lot of research has shown for that to happen. So yeah, mainly that.
Don't go to the shops when you're hungry.
Oh yeah, don't do
exactly
that.
right. That's right. Well, that's really great. Thank you, everybody. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop the recording and we're going to get everyone that's watching us online so they can ask questions, have a bit of a chat as well if you want to. So while we do that, if anyone, you can turn your camera off as well if you want to, that is. So I'll stop the recording and we'll get the others back on here.